Thanks. So I'm going to do a little bit more of the history part of things. So I've joined Chris Barrett's group in Los Alamos at the end of 1998, so I'm going to start this history from around there. That group was actually going for about 5 years before I joined. So around 2000, the 2000-2005 timeframe, we were running on a system called Rockhopper. It was about 80 two-processor single-core nodes. And we were doing Portland. It's kind of hard to, I guess it's not too bad. So up there, so each one of those little squares is 1 million people. So we had a couple million people running around. And at the bottom, what Stephen would have shown is a picture of Transim's output. So those are actually, each one of those is a car moving around the city of Portland. And putting that together, doing one of these simulation runs took weeks to do. Arguably, you could call Transims our first user-accessible application. I say arguably here because we didn't actually put this together. We put the back end together, all the models, and then had a commercial partner, which originally was PricewaterhouseCoopers. That division got bought by IBM, so ultimately it was IBM we were working with, who put together a Java-based desktop interface to the system that was used by several MPOs, including Portland Metro, who we worked with. So this is where we started. 2005, we came to VBI and started working here. There we had 2 machines that were added over those 5 years. They were a little bit bigger. We expanded the population that we had to the city of Chicago, which was about 10 million people. And at that point, we could do these simulations in days. Also, over that time, we added a system called Didactic, which then was called ISIS, which we recently renamed to Sybil for obvious reasons. Which is a web-based tool that is actually used by decision makers that we're collaborating with in DITCHA and other government organizations, where they can sit down and run these big experimental designs, analyze the results, and actually have their results generated for them, which they can then use, incorporate into their presentations, and inform the decisions that they're making. We're trying to get out of the role of somebody asking us questions, taking 2 months, developing a 100-page report, giving it back to them, they read it, and the first thing they said was, well, what if you did this? And then we'd have to go back and redo that cycle. If we give them the tools, they can do all those what-if questions themselves. Over the next 5 years, we increased our computation quite a bit. We have Pecos, which is still with us, and the beginning of Shadowfax. We added another tool, which was SciNet. So this is a network analysis tool where people can go in, look at different networks, and run about 50 different network analysis measures to kind of understand what these social contact networks that we're creating, what the properties they have. And we moved up to both creating and running the population in the United States. So 300 million individual people. These are synthetic people, so there's no personally identifiable information in here. you can't find me in our population. What you can find is people like me in the same proportion that they're in the real population. So if you take a census of our synthetic population, it matches the US Census that we use to create this. And then where we are today, current shadow facts, over 3,000 cores. So I don't know if you can make out the colors, but basically those one and a half of those top boxes up there is what we started out with 15 years ago. And that's actually not really a fair comparison. This is just counting actual physical cores, the cores themselves. There's about a factor of 3 that you get just from the clock cycle, another factor of 5 based on other improvements. So there's about a 10x improvement between a core that we originally had and the cores that we have now. So in the nodes on Shadowfax that we're currently in the process of deploying, 132 core node there is about equal to all of the cluster that we're operating on in 2000. And we have 23 of those that we're adding currently. And within a factor of 2 or so, the node costs have stayed the same. So the computing power we have is greatly increased. Today, in the middle there, we have many user-based applications. These are tailored to answer particular questions that we've been asked by sponsors, by people within our lab, tailored to what they need to know and how they want to use the system. Some of them are very simple. EpiViewer is just a way to look at multiple epi curves laid on top of each other. And that solves the problem that came up during our Ebola response, where you had multiple labs around the world and multiple organizations presenting forecasts and ground truth, and basically you would get PowerPoint or PDF. And the scales were different, the times were different. There's no real easy way to compare these things other than put them side by side and try and make sense out of them. So we developed a system where we would pull the data out of those, put it into our system. Somebody can log on to that, select the graphs they want to see, and they get overlaid on top of each other. One of the recent features we added was a movie feature, an animation where you can actually see successive forecasts as time progressed. So you can see how people's forecasts changed over time. Today we have a population of about 800 million people covering 14 countries. And like I said, those applications there. One thing I was going to say is the computing power that I've shown here is just what we have locally. We also use other resources at Virginia Tech, other national resources from NSF, DOE, DOD. Basically, as much computing as we can get, we can make use of. And that runtime now is down to seconds. One of the things we've done over the past year or so, we did a study on a system called Blue Waters at NCSA. It has 320,000 cores on it, and we're able to simulate the entire population in the United States, so 300 distinct agents running around, interacting with each other, with the flu spreading throughout this population in less than 30 seconds. So we've come a long way from weeks doing Portland, Oregon. Where we're heading is global population. And we expect to be there by the end of next year. So this is a project that's ongoing. That's where the 800 million came from as a partial step towards getting that whole way. Petascale computing, like I said, over 300,000 cores. We're developing this app ecosystem. So instead of these individual stovepipe applications that don't talk to each other, they're all working on common data. Results generated in one app can be seen and used in other apps. So you can use Civil to create experiments. You then can analyze the experiments through SciNet. You can visualize the results from the forecasting tools in EpiViewer, etc. And we're creating platforms for others to build apps to add to this ecosystem. So we're in the process of building these software development kits, so somebody who wants to use this data can put together their own app, tie into our system, get all the benefits of what's there, and tailor things to exactly what they want to do. And this goes along with loosely coupled interacting infrastructures, both the urban infrastructures, populations, transportation, telecommunication, public health systems, energy systems, as well as interacting cyber infrastructures. So ours, other people's, the NSF's Exceed system, and then Samarth will talk about this a little more, but adding more complex, nuanced behavior to our system and integrating the both within skin, the microbiome, genetics, proteomics stuff with the beyond skin stuff, how people move around, how they interact with people and the urban environments around them. Okay. And then Samarth will talk to us about this global synthetic information system.